Unmuted.
This meeting of the City of Socorro City Council is set to begin. First and foremost, we would like to thank everyone and ask for your patience during this difficult time we have been presented with. Everyone, please remember to silence any electronics to avoid sound interruption. No disruptive behavior or outbursts will be tolerated, and violators are subject to call disconnection and possible prosecution. In accordance with Section 418.016 of the Texas Government Code and by order of the Office of the Governor, issued March 16, 2020, the City of Socorro City Council broadcast meeting scheduled today, January 21, 2021, at 6 p.m. from council chambers located at 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, via telephone conference and live stream in order to advance the public health goal and practice social distancing to slow the spread of the coronavirus, also known as COVID 19. The public that signed up and any presenters will be called upon by the presiding officer during the meeting to speak during the public comment or their agenda item following Government Code 551.042. La reunión del Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Primeramente, queremos darle las gracias y pedimos su paciencia durante estos momentos críticos que enfrentamos. Favor de poner en silencio todo equipo electrónico para evitar interrupción de sonido. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento perjudicial o revoltoso. A quien no siga estas reglas, su llamada será desconectada y puede ser infraccionado. De acuerdo con sección 418.016 del Código del Gobierno de Texas y por orden de la Oficina del Gobernador, anunciada el 16 de marzo del 2020, el Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro transmitirá su reunión hoy, 21 de enero del 2021 a las 6 de la tarde, desde la sala del concilio localizada en 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, por medio del teléfono y será transmitida en vivo. Para avanzar en el objetivo de la ciudad, salud pública y practicar el distanciamiento social, para tomar medidas preventivas para prevenir la propagación del coronavirus, conocida como COVID-19, a los demás y por la seguridad del público. El público y los presentadores serán anunciados por el oficial conduciendo la reunión. Para poder hablar durante la sección de comentario público o después de la discusión del artículo de la agenda por cual se apuntaron, siguiendo las reglas del gobierno 551.042.
Good evening, Socorro. It is now 6:09 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Ms. Rodarte, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, ma'am. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Establishment of quorum.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Here.
Ralph Duran,
Here.
Mayor Ivy Avalos,
Here.
Victor Perez,
Here.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Item 4, public comments.
Mayor, we do have several speakers for public comment. Our first speaker, Mary Gonzalez.
Mayor, we do have our House Representative, Mary Gonzalez, that has signed up for public comment.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Council. I'm just first and foremost wanted to say congratulations to the Council and for your new positions. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to reach out before. As you can probably know, COVID kind of threw our lives through a spin. But I did want to reach out personally and say hello and congratulations, and really excited to work together. For those of you who don't know, I have been the state representative for District 75, which includes Socorro. And in fact, if you think of the boundaries, it's basically everything east of Zaragoza to the Hudspeth County line, and I've been the state representative now on my 5th term. I serve on the Appropriations, Public Education, and Vice Chair of the Local and Consent Calendars Committee, and I'm really excited to work together. Every 2 years, I have to sadly leave I live in Clint, like literally 5 miles away from y'all's office, and I have to sadly leave home and head to Austin to represent our beautiful community. And I just wanted you to know that I'm here if you need anything. I'm really fortunate to be on the leadership team with the Speaker's office, so I get to do great work for our community. And I know y'all have a vibrant and exciting legislative agenda. But first and foremost, just know that I have a serious addiction to Red Bull, so I don't sleep. So feel free to call and or text me anytime. I respond immediately, usually, unless I'm riding horses. And know that I really care about our district and our community, and I'm here for whatever you need. And feel free to reach out personally to help and support you. I don't know if you can ask any questions, but regardless, I am going to share my cell phone number with your city manager. And so feel free to ask her for my number, and feel free to send me a text and I'll save your number so I answer it. But know that I am just a phone call away to work on all the priorities and issues that are important to you. And as one of your councilwoman members knows, you can also find me always eating at Mamacitas.
Thank you. Our second,
Thank y'all so much.
our second speaker is Miriam Cruz.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro. So first, I want to congratulate Mr. Villar, Sergeant Verdier, Sergeant Rosario, and Detective Valera. I know that you all will get some congratulations, but usually we get to clap and you won't get to hear that from your constituents. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out and say thank you, you know, from someone who appreciates that you guys have stuck around, and I hope that you stick around for another 10, 20, 30 years. My second comment is about, I wanted to let city council members know that I'm still very interested in being appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's the meeting, other than this one, it's one of those meetings that I attend pretty regularly. I attended this week. Like I've said in the past, there's been times where I have better attendance than some of the commissioners that are on there. And so I'm not saying that's the case now, but it has been at some point. And so I'm still very interested. I'm still very up to date with what's going on in that commission, and I'm still very interested in being appointed. The third thing that I wanted to mention was that 3 years later, there's still a lot of speeding going on Stockyard Road, like a lot. And especially right now that I think that there's a little bit less traffic, I think cars are actually just going faster. And there's also a problem that there's 18-wheelers still passing by this neighborhood. So if you're familiar with the house, with the street, you know that there are several houses that are facing Stockyard. And then there's there's a park in the county side right next to the city limits that people walk to. So there's a basketball court there. And so people like to go to the park and walk around there and play basketball. And so there's a lot of commuting still happening, especially now that people aren't in school. People are trying to get outside their house. And so it's still a big issue. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that I really hope that everyone that's sitting currently in the city council, and hopefully all the staff, I know that staff takes direction from city council, believe that parks are a huge part of quality of life, and that we're no longer going to be accepting the excuse that we don't have people to maintain parks as a reason to not request them and require them in the neighborhoods. I wrote a letter, I want to say 4 years ago, to the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, when they were going to approve a development without a park, as to all of the benefits, all the social benefits, all of the safety benefits, as to why a park is actually a good thing to have in a neighborhood, and a good place to have neighbors meet each other and know each other and stuff like that. And so
Ms.
anyway, I won't go
Cruz,
into it. I just
your-
hope that,
Ms. Cruz, your time is up.
thank you.
Our next speaker is Bernardo Reyes.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to this council meeting. I just wanted to address public item number 24 in reference to the commercial vehicles parking. When this amendment was adopted by Socorro City Council, I don't think the council really researched or considered the effect the amendment would have on the farming community of Socorro. This city ordinance has caused a big burden on me, being that I'm a farmer that grows the hay and alfalfa on my farm and require a big truck and trailer to haul my alfalfa and other farming equipment to and from my farm. A truck is a very important piece of equipment on a farm. Prohibiting a truck on a farm, an agriculturally zoned farm, is like prohibiting a dairy farm from having any cows on it. So it is very important for us to have a truck to haul the hay that we cut yearly from our farms. My 3-acre farm might not be as big as other farms around Socorro, but I do have agriculture exemptions, the same as agriculture exemptions from the state of Texas, the same as the big farms do. And I also pay for water rights the same as the big farms do. So I don't think that it is right for the city of Socorro to equate agricultural exempt properties to residential properties. We farmers, we have our barns where we park our equipment and trucks on concrete pads, and we farmers really take care of our groundwater, and we depend a lot on our water wells to irrigate our fields when we are limited due to droughts or and limited from water from the Rio Grande. So it is important for us to care for our water rights and our water table to keep them from contaminants. Therefore, our water table is very important to us. So with this, I hope that the city council can, last time that we spoke to the city, they could help us by removing the agricultural zone from the city ordinance. So if anything that can be done to alleviate that, to help us farmers, would greatly be appreciated. With this, I guess I'll keep in touch with my city representative and city manager, Andrea Duarte, tomorrow and see what we can work on with this. Yes. And as far as the truck parking, like last time we had the council meeting, we discussed truck parking in residential areas. I don't know if anything came of that, but supposedly Socorro was gonna try to adapt the same ordinance
Mr.
that
Reyes?
Horizon City has as far as.
Mr. Reyes,
Yes,
your
ma'am.
time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Elia Garcia. Ms. Garcia?
Ms. Garcia left the meeting.
Ms. Garcia has left the meeting. Our last speaker is Ralph Duran.
I'd just like to thank Representative Dr. Gonzalez for giving us the time, because I called her. Within 3 minutes, I had a text message. She was on another line. Within 10 minutes, I was on the phone with her. This is the kind of access we need to our legislators. And I raised some concerns with her about the upcoming session. And she just basically told me that she's now vice chair of appropriations, which is a pretty powerful position, and that she'll be able to help Socorro a lot of different ways. That's basically, I just wanted to thank her and to let her know that we're going to be calling her quite a bit. And like I said, she does answer her phone and she does listen. Thank you.
Mayor, those were all our speakers.
Ms. Garcia did rejoin the meeting, and we have another caller that called in.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Garcia?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak, even though I did get disconnected. I did wanted to say congratulations to the City of Socorro employees that have been able to survive for 10 years. They've been through a lot of up and downs. Second of all, I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Duran said. I think that we have very proactive representatives in the City of Socorro. We have Mary Gonzalez, and even though Veronica Escobar doesn't represent the area, I'm sure that we can always reach out, and they were more than willing and able to present any issues that the City of Socorro is having in their legislative session. And last, I would like to comment on the city manager's evaluation. I think that the evaluation provided in the backup is a good start, but I feel that since City Council is not in the City of Socorro each day, I think that it would be better for council to consider a 360 evaluation. And that's a type of evaluation where you can consider feedback from peers, from customers, from constituents, from other people that have jobs similar like her in the area. That way you can have a more clear picture of everything that's going on. And those types of evaluations can be done using either consultants, or there's a lot of tools online that I was reviewing. They could be done with anonymous surveys, and that way you can have a wider range of feedback. I think that the evaluation is very important, and without accurate feedback, there's no point. It's not impactful. Thank you for your time.
Mayor, those were all our speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to presentations. Item number 5, presentation and recognition to 10-year anniversaries for Juan del Villar, Karina Verdier, Elias Valera, and Lee Rosario.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to say congratulations to Elias Valera, Karina Verdier, Lee Rosario, and Mr. Juan del Villar. This year marks a significant milestone in your service to the City of Socorro. The successful growth of our city is the direct result of you, our valued employees. Your dedication and commitment serve as a vital link in the chain which drives our operation. In recognition of that commitment, we are pleased to present you with the Glass Teardrop Award as a small token of appreciation to your hard work and dedication. You can all hold up your award since they all have received it this week. That would be great. And then we want to show a little video of just showing you a little token of appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much
don't
for
know
your
if-
service.
Okay, perfect.
I just want to thank you guys for all the service. We really appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you guys for joining us. I know that some of you are off the clock or at work, but thank you. We do really thank you for your service. All right, I'm proud to be part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief is proud of you.
Council, can we entertain the motion to move item 24 after item 5?
Motion to move item 24 after item 5.
Second.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colombia Lobos.
Yes.
Item 24, report on ordinance 481, public meeting.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Mike Mina, City Planner. So the objective here is to report back to council a workshop that we had with the public in regard to ordinance 488. And initially what this ordinance does is that it addressed a need and a nuisance identified by the public, and then more importantly, affirmed by the council by way of this ordinance. So ultimately what this ordinance does is that it prohibits large commercial vehicles that are being parked or stored in the residential and agricultural zoning districts. Can we move to the next slide? So with regard to ordinance 481, we did have a public meeting. It was held back in February of 2020. And originally we were going to present this in the following weeks. However, that's when COVID affected the entire region. And so we're coming back to close the loop on this. Ultimately, the goal of the meeting was to communicate what the ordinance reflected in terms of violations and to get the feedback from the public with regard to the same ordinance. So as a recap to ordinance 481, section 1 identifies ultimately what is the prohibition. So if you look at section 42-69, it identifies the inability to be parking or operating said vehicle for an extended amount of time, given the characteristics of the length of the vehicle. Section 2 also affirms the set type of vehicles that are prohibited, and ultimately is that there's routes that are identified for truck traffic. So one of the things here that is misinterpreted is the component of interstate or intrastate access. So what I mean by that is that there is really no prohibition of a vehicle to operate on the public road. I think everybody has that authority. However, a municipality can restrict certain types of vehicles that are operating within the municipality. And when we do this is that normally the council will identify a designated truck route. We have that. And so this, again, is just to make it a point that the city has that police power to enforce. However, it's not violating any type of commerce rule. Here we have a section 3, which also ultimately describes, through the ordinance and any other element with regard to zoning. And so with section 46633, we talk about the parking spaces. And again, here is the affirmation that these type of vehicles, whether the semi-truck, commercial trailer, parking and or storage of such is prohibited. Section 4 also talks about the component of having the capability to enforce this police power. So here is where we would receive a complaint from a resident. Code enforcers would go out there and do an observation. And we find that the observation does meet the initial complaint, we issue a notice of violation. So in regard to the feedback, what we did do, and the slides are further from here, is we made the presentation of what the ordinance read, what was enforceable, and how we enforce it. We also explained that during the set time that if a notice of violation is issued, there is time for compliance. However, if an individual who has received a notice of violation does not comply, then we move ahead with the citation. Once the citation is communicated to them, then that moves into the municipal court arena. So with that is that we also had asked for them to write down on several boards their comments with related to ordinance 41 and the feedback. I think earlier I heard that there was a comment about the city of Horizon, the large truck parking ordinance. So you can see that one's on there, but let me just go through them so that anybody that is not able to see the video or hear the workshop as we're going through it can hear it. So there was a comment about allowing storage of containers with permits and requirements, having truck route connectivity, commerce connectivity, parking convenience, exceptions for agricultural vehicles, allowable turn around off main roads, ordinance clarity to decrease reports, modify zoning ordinances, define acreage and setbacks, require a concrete pad and parking, no trucks in residential area, shadow Horizon City's large truck parking ordinance, city should provide parking lots, post standard operating procedure, 100-foot setback from a commercial highway, grandfather existing storage trailers, to continue, local commercial truck route, reporting which creates conflict, truck idling noise, truck fumes, affect irrigation bridges with vehicle weight, traffic increase, and then towards the end, proposed truck routes, North Nevada's, no Equitanks, North Moon from North Loop to I-10, Bauman from Middle Drain to North Loop. And as you can see, these were some of the exhibits that we used. We used a city map to illustrate the infrastructure. That's what you see on the far right with the green demonstrating some of the roadway network. And then on the left-hand side in the middle exhibits is where the feedback was written by staff. And then we asked them to designate by using these dots, the importance in relationship to their priorities. And so that concludes the presentation and the feedback that we have received from the public. If there's any questions from the council members or the public, I can certainly entertain any and all questions.
Mayor, we have a speaker for this item. Bernardo Reyes. He has left the meeting.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Medina, I do have some questions. I did read this. I did hear your comments. Can you hear me?
Can't hear.
Yeah, okay, closer. Okay. I did read this. I did hear your comments, and I also heard Mr. Bernal's concerns. And I'm concerned about his concerns too. Sometimes when we buy our properties, they come with um, rights, and then of course the city changes. And I'm not a fan of changing somebody's rights to their property. The property that he is, I don't know if you're familiar with the property that he's talking about. If this were to change, how does this affect his operation? Mr. Medina, did you hear me?
Bernardo Reyes.
Is Mr.
Mike, did you hear Ms. Colombia Lobos?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear me, sir?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Can
No.
you guys hear me? Can all of you hear me? Oh, okay. Is it my, is it,
Closer.
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Benita, I was saying that the gentleman that called with his concerns, Mr. Reyes, um, I was saying I'm not a fan of changing their what is it their covenant when they purchase their property, because that's the reason, they purchased their property, because they could operate a certain way. By us approving something like this, of course today's just discussion, or what is it, a discussion or just a report, but if we were to move forward with changing, how does this affect his daily operation? Are you familiar with his operation?
No, ma'am. I think that with regard to his operation, only he can, echo that clearly. I don't work for him, have any type of understanding of the type of business that he operates. Uh, so it would be upon him to demonstrate what the effect is in terms of the operation. But from what I understand is that he is affected because this ordinance does not allow for him to park his vehicles on his property.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with grandfathered, or he purchased this property um, a long time ago. This is normal operation for him, and it's agricultural, is what I think he mentioned his property was agricultural, and so obviously when you have agriculture, you have heavy equipment, and that's another concern for me. And I think Mrs. Rodarte she's raising her hand, so I'm thinking she probably has a little bit better insight.
Ms. Rodarte?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. The reason we conducted a community meeting is because we were receiving both ends. There's people that are opposed 18-wheelers, and there's people that actually need them, or that's their livelihood. So as staff went out and received the public's input in order to bring back to you all and really get direction to see if you want us to sit down and amend that ordinance that will meet us in the middle of a happy median, or do you want to just continue allowing the same ordinance that we have? What the issue that we're having is that when we go out and enforce, it creates a lot of calls to council. And this is where the people are upset. And that's why we stated in February, let's go ahead and call a community meeting just to see what the community is out there. And again, we get the pros and cons. I think, we had the room full and it was half and half, right? So where our job is just to report to you all. This is kind of what we gathered from the community. And if you all want to change or amend the ordinance, that would be a different item that you would bring back and just say, we want to amend the ordinance to this or that. Or staff, I need you guys to go out there and, direct us to research, or, bring back options. We can also do that. The thing was that we were getting multiple complaints, which we felt that we needed a community meeting and bring back to council what it is that we gathered from that community meeting.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you. I understand the agricultural aspect of it. Having grown up around cotton fields and stuff like that, you would see 10-wheelers, 10-wheel vehicles, not necessarily 18-wheelers on farms. So I'm having a hard time understanding how an 18-wheeler would be used in a farm setting versus a 10-wheeler, which is a smaller vehicle, a smaller truck, and is usually the one. And maybe Mr. Leon can talk to this as well. Those are the ones that you would usually see on the farms, picking up hay bales, picking up cotton, or whatever, or hauling those things around. Not necessarily 18-wheelers. Again, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But I don't ever recall seeing 18-wheelers on a farm setting.
I agree. I don't know, Mike, are you aware that the ordinance specifies the difference between a large commercial vehicle? Like the definition of what that entails?
Offhand, I don't remember the actual classification per se. But again, is that the thing here is the response of the vehicles and how they're stored. whether it's on the property or on the city right away. Uh, with regard to what an operator may use in terms of a vehicle, I mean, obviously that's their choice. But I do understand that with regard to, identifying vehicles, by way of ordinance, we can certainly do that if that's the will of the council moving forward. Along with that is that if we are directed to re-examine this, of course, we could come back with some form of test that would make a demonstration of the qualifications that would potentially exempt someone. So what I'm trying to say is that before this ordinance was enacted unanimously by the previous council, there was no grandfathering that I know of by way of ordinance, and the city does not enforce any covenants.
Mr. Duran?
We have to also remember that Socorro is still about 50% agricultural. And now gone are the days of the little pacas, little bales of hay that everybody picked up. They're all most of the farmers make the 1-ton bales. And those are moved by semi trucks. Those and then now for the farmers that do pick cotton, the trucks that bring in we don't have the cotton pickers here in Socorro anymore. They come from outside of the area, they pick the cotton and they move on. Same with any of the types of grain. We don't have, they're extremely expensive, and so they bring them in on semi trucks. So I think that we need to probably fine tune this ordinance. And with regards to the storage, the Connex trailers, we had a huge um, amount of people that were talking about those, and I do think we need to fine tune this ordinance to protect our farmers and for the people that have been here before the city was a city.
Mr. Nevares?
I agree with Mr. Uran. In fact, Mr. Reyes has been there even longer than his neighbors. His neighbors as well use heavy equipment, whether it be to haul cars, horses, but you do see the 18-wheeler traffic in the area. And like I said, he's been there longer than his neighbors. It is a farming community on that side of the street. And most of them do grow alfalfa, and they do. He's got heavy equipment because he needs it. So I agree with Mr. Uran. We need to fine tune this and help our farmers.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you for the clarification. I think I agree with that as well. I don't think that we need to get rid of the ordinance altogether, because we still have, dense areas where we do have people parking their 18-wheelers, the tractor or the trailer. And so I think that we need to look at the different conditions which we would think would be most appropriate for allowing, because usually if you have a farm, then more than likely you'll have the space to park the tractor and trailer combination or whatever equipment you have safely off the street. We're looking at areas where you have the 18-wheeler parked in the right of way of the street, and all those kinds of things that happen with it. And that's where we've gotten those complaints. So I think that the next step here would be to further define between, again, as Mr. Duran and Mr. Nevares pointed out, between agricultural and rural versus dense neighborhoods.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes. I have two neighbors on both sides of our street. We have a Lujan trucking. They're using 18 wheelers. They use water trucks. Every piece of equipment, they have it. They got a very nice yard, clean, organized. And on the other side, I got one of my neighbors that likes to park his 18 wheeler in the sidewalk. And I think it goes both ways and trying to figure out mainly the storage, the parking, and if they have space in their own property to maintain their vehicles.
Mr. Duran?
Yeah, the semi trucks have no business being in residential areas. And this past year, I walked a lot of the neighborhoods in my district, and there were several semi trucks parked in the driveways and sometimes on the street in a residential area. Now, I realize some of these truckers, they live there, but their trucks can be parked at the yard where they work. They don't need to be bringing them home because they're heavy, they're big, and some of the streets are kind of narrow. So we need to, you know, designate where they can be, like the farms and residential areas. There's no bit there, and I've seen it's even with the trailers parked in residential areas, and those are the ones that they damage our streets, they cause congestion, and that's how we need to fine tune the ordinance so that we can protect the people that have these big vehicles, but have them in a place where it does not cause any problems to anybody, and then also protect the people that live in the neighborhoods who, they shouldn't have to be dealing with these giant trucks.
Ms. Villalobos?
Also, Mr. Medina, also I heard that you said police cannot enforce a violation because of not having a an ordinance in place for that specific violation.
No, ma'am, I guess for clarification, I mentioned police power. And in the realm of land use, that's what it's referred to. So when you create an ordinance, the municipality is given authority by way of the enabling legislative, bodies, in this case, like the federal government. They allow for the police power to be written by way of ordinance, and that is what gets enforced by either the code enforcers or the police departments.
So, Chief Burton, at this time, what is it that the police are doing when you find a violation like this?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dave Burton, Chief of Police. So just last week, we received complaints of tractor trailer trucks. Most of the time, actually, we get a picture that comes in with it. It's sent to us by email. Sometimes it goes through the city manager's office. When we do get that, we send out the officer to do the enforcement. Tractor trailer trucks are not allowed to be parked on sidewalks, period. I do not need an ordinance for that. That's state law. So it doesn't matter the language that's contained as far as the municipality is concerned. The other thing I just wanted to point out is on the farms, if it's 18-wheelers that are doing deliveries and or pickups, those would be exceptions anyway, such as bringing in heavy equipment or removing livestock or bringing in livestock, because it counts as a local delivery. Again, that's state law. That's allowed. It's only, I think, Mr. Medina was talking about if the property owner has the 18-wheeler, then can it be stored on the property?
Mayor, we do have Mr. Reyes signed up for this item.
Yes. Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry. I lost you guys for a while, but I'm back. If you needed anything from me?
I'm sorry, what did he say? I didn't hear him. But if we need anything from him.
Mr. Reyes, would you repeat that? We couldn't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry that I lost you guys earlier. So I'm back. I just want to know if you guys needed anything from me.
Not at the moment. Unless he wants to speak. Question.
Ms. Villalobos?
I guess right now we're just discussing the item. I don't think we're voting on anything today at this time. And I think, I don't know, do we have enough information on this item? And it will continue, right? We will, when is this item due to come back for approval, for discussion and approval?
I guess I'll answer this. If there's an item at the next city council meeting to amend or to direct staff to amend ordinance 481 by way of recommendations, we can come back. So that would be the next step.
Mr. Perez?
Question, would we be, since it's a report, can we provide staff to, or give staff an assignment as to look at the different scenarios that we talked about? Is that doable, or is that out of the scope of this agenda item? Jim, could you answer that?
Yes, sir. The question is, could you direct staff to make amendments or take a certain direction with the ordinance?
Yes, since it's just a report, I'm not sure that we're posted to, because
Yeah.
that would be an action, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think, it's almost like a presentation. I don't think you're posted for action. I mean,
So
you
I
could
think-
certainly discuss it, what council's preference is, and, you know, your staff has ears. I mean, they'll know what you said, but you can't take a formal vote saying do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, because it'll be I think it'll be very helpful to look at the differences between for the farm setting and the heavy traffic or heavy dense neighborhood setting. Yeah, I mean, it would be good if somebody were to take initiative and look at those differences and maybe come up with ideas to approach them.
Ms. Rodarte?
Mayor and Council, what I can offer is I'll place an item on the agenda at our next meeting. And we will try to go out there and see if there's other cities with a similar situation that we're in. So I can bring something back by next council meeting. And then at that point, you can direct staff to go what way you would like us to with the ordinance.
Mr. Duran?
We had that public meeting, and I think the public gave us an idea of what they would like to see. And I think staff could look at that and then come up with some recommendations based on the amount of public input we had. And I was at that meeting, and there was a lot of people there, and there was a lot of ideas. And I think that staff can look at what was said there and what ideas were brought forward, and then they can come back with some recommendations. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. Just give us the recommendations.
I agree.
Moving on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
And just for clarification, it seems like the backup and the agenda items are not aligned. Like for example, item number 6, which is excuse absent council members, was numbered as number 6 for the presentation from Ms. Rodarte. So I think there's the numbering is off.
I'm sorry, will that cause a problem? Or we'll just fix it for next time? Okay.
And I yes for the vote.
and Ivan Colombia Lobos.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to our regular agenda. Grants Department, item 14, discussion and action to update TXCDBG Form A-202 to include Mayor Ivy Avalos as an authorized signatory for the Texas CDBG contract number 7218460.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is Alejandra Valadez, Grants Coordinator for the City of Socorro. This is an update to our CDBG authorized signatory form. We do have to have authorized signatories that are allowed to sign important documents for this project, such as contract documents and environmental documents. We have to make an update in order to appoint our new mayor as a signatory. The last form had our previous mayor, and so we have to make that update now.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a hard time hearing you all. Sorry about that.
Me too, guys. If you could please get closer to the microphone.
Yes, sir. Testing, testing. Better?
Item 15, discussion and action to update Texas CDBG Form A1008 and appoint Carolyn J. Candelaria as Civil Rights Officer for Texas CDBG Contract Number 7218460.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is for the same project. 7218460 is for the Sparks Arroyo Phase 2 project. Because it is funded through CDBG funds, we must have a civil rights officer that is designated to this project. Our previous civil rights officer was Ms. Mayela Granados, who is no longer with us. And so we must appoint a new civil rights officer in Ms. Candelaria.
Mayor.
Ms. Villalobos?
And just for those that are still with us, Ms. Candelaria is our new HR director, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item 16, discussion and action to update Texas CDBG Form 8701 and appoint Carolyn J. Candelaria as Labor Standards Officer for Texas CDBG Contract 7218460.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Again, this is for the same project, the Sparks Arroyo Phase 2 project. Our previous designated labor standards officer was Ms. Mayela Granados, who is no longer with us. We would like to appoint, when we submitted this item, we had wanted to appoint Ms. Candelaria, our HR director, as labor standards officer, but we have since learned that we were advised by our grant administrator to appoint someone who is already a certified CDBG grant administrator. Since our new HR director is not yet certified, we'd like to change that appointment to Rebecca Brewster, who is our current grant administrator and is a CDBG certified grant administrator, while Ms. Candelaria, if she so chooses, takes the training and the test to become a certified CDBG grant administrator.
All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and amend my motion to reflect Ms. Brewster as the as the selected person.
Second. Question.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Martinez, can we, at this time, appoint somebody else since it was not posted? Her name was not posted?
Yes, I mean, if it's a proposal to appoint her, and there's always, I mean, I think that inherently includes the possibility that council will decide not to appoint her or appoint somebody in her place. So yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item 17, discussion and action to approve Resolution 632 of support for the El Paso Water Improvement District Number 1's grant application to the Texas Water Development Board fiscal year 2021 Agricultural Water Conservation Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The El Paso County Water Improvement District has reached out to us requesting a resolution of support for their grant application to the FY 2021 Agricultural Water Conservation Program. They are requesting funding for the Riverside Regulating Reservoir. There is a map included in your backup which shows the location of the reservoir, of the future reservoir. which is adjacent to the Rio Bosque Wetlands Park. This, if approved, they will receive funding for an engineering feasibility study, which will eventually lead to water conservation, drought mitigation, flood mitigation, and will benefit not only residents, but agricultural businesses in Socorro as well.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 18, discussion and action to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of Socorro, Texas, the University of Texas at El Paso, Minority AIDS Research Center, Aliviane Inc., and El Paso Child Guidance Center.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is a request to approve a memorandum of understanding between the UTEP Mark Center, Aliviane, and the El Paso Child Guidance Center. This MOU is in connection to a grant application titled U.S.-Mexico Border Resiliency in Minority Communities Promotion After Stress and Trauma Program. That's a very long name, but it's a grant opportunity through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. All entities named in this MOU will work together to bring evidence-based interventions to youth and families in the city of Socorro, Texas, for a 5-year program. Starting on September 30th, 2021 through September 29th, 2026. If this MOU is approved and we receive the funding, the city of Socorro and partners will hire a program manager, conduct a community needs assessment, develop a strategic plan, identify programs and services related to behavioral health and mental health and counseling and peer services that could benefit youth and families in our community. They will then bring in the training to first responders, health and human services providers, our police department, and then also provide peer support activities for high-risk youth and families. The MOU is attached in the backup for you. And that is all.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to the Police Department, item number 19, discussion and action on approving the purchase of 6 fully equipped patrol vehicles for the Police Department in the amount of $300,829.26.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dave Burton, Chief of Police. So this is part of our improvement expansion program that's ongoing. And you know, since I've been here, it not only involves personnel, but it also involves the equipment that we use. Presently, if you look at the Socorro police fleet, it's several makes and models, and it's different colors within the fleet. And it also involves what they call ghosted vehicles, as opposed to what I like to consider the community vehicle. The community vehicle to me is something that stands out as a police vehicle, has the full lights and sirens package. I can go into a neighborhood at night with my cruise lights or patrol lights on, and you know that I'm there, as opposed to the ghost vehicles, which have the suppressed lighting, the suppressed lettering, and basically are designed for stealth type vehicles. We're moving away. That's my philosophy with the police department, is I want to move away from the ghost vehicles and go into this community type presentation. So we're going to change the colors. We're going to standardize the colors. We started that last year. We bought Ford Tauruses, and they are now silver. They're silver and black. They stand out, and they're readily identified as police cars. These 6 vehicles, we planned for them so that it is in the budget for this year. Also, we are buying off a buy board which is a state pricing type package. These are standardized vehicles. So in other words, from now on, all of our vehicles will have the same equipment. One of the issues that we have is they're equipped differently. Some of them have MDTs, which are our mobile data terminals. Some of them have radars, fixed radars. Some of them have the installed radio systems, but they're not all the same. So we're going to change that because otherwise what we're having to do is go and buy vehicles from dealers and then installing the equipment ourselves. And these are not that type of vehicle. These are specialty type vehicles. Just so council is aware, the average police vehicle for the high speed, and that's what we're talking about, is a 4-month build time. So you can't just go to a lot and buy one of these. You have to put your name on a list, and then it goes on the production line. And then the other thing is that they're specialty built. So the brakes, the suspension, the steering, the engine, the electronics, it's not the civilian package. Okay? So if we're going to do this, this is why I'm bringing it forward now, because it would take us 4 months down the road to even get these as far as the fleet is concerned. And like I said, this will standardize the equipment that we find in the vehicles. Some of the vehicles that we have now were bought as high-speed vehicles, and they're actually not rated for it. So then there's a liability on the city for that if we're called to an emergency type response where we have to drive at high speed, but unfortunately we have some kind of mechanical failure. These Fords that we're looking at are purpose-built for that reason, and that therefore they're warranted by the manufacturer. And I'll take any questions.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you, Chief, for pursuing that. No pun intended. But just a question. I remember there was a while back where the Explorers had a tendency of overheating, I believe. Do you know if all that has been taken care of by the manufacturer?
Yeah, so it's not just overheating. They also had a gas exhaust problem. And when Ford first designed them, they came out, the new Ford Explorers I'm talking about, they came out with pre-designed channeling so that it was easier to install aftermarket equipment. A great idea, but they actually left pieces or they left holes or gaps in the designed equipment, which allowed a gas problem to occur. The same thing with the engine. They had to go back and redesign. Again, these are designed to be driven a lot of hours at possible high speeds, but sometimes cruise speed. So it's up and down. There's a lot of wear and tear on the engine. So that required some redesign on their part. And I should point out that these cars that we're going to get are going to replace 2014s. Right now, we're not supposed to keep a pursuit vehicle for anything more than 3 years. So now we're replacing 2014s with these.
Thank you for the clarification.
Ms. Villalobos?
Chief, I want the police department to have these. I know you need them. But what does this do to your budget? I know we allocated for it, but I know that you have other items that are coming up, big ticket items.
Yeah, it really, so we planned for this ahead of time and some of our larger ticket items. We did have to move a little bit of money around. Obviously, we want to be fiscally responsible. Otherwise, if you gave the money to me, I just asked for everything. But so we had to move a little bit around. We'll sacrifice a little bit this year, but it's important that we get a fleet, a bulk fleet purchase made this year, a bulk fleet purchase made next year. It'll bring our fleet up to standards.
Thank you, sir.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Yvonne Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to Parks and Public Works, item number 20, discussion and action to approve the purchase of a street sweeper in the amount of $274,000.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This was approved back through our capital improvement program in September 2020 during our budget process. This is coming out of capital funds. Can you please share the picture? So this is adding a street sweeper to our department, which is currently in need. If you all see Nuevo Hueco, Tanks Road, Horizon, that the section is able to maintain. It needs a sweeping of all that sand that accumulates when there's winds. So the department is really in need of this type of machinery. We do also, you went through the buy board, which is acceptable through our purchasing manual.
Does it pull weeds?
I'm sorry?
Does it pull weeds?
No, I wish it did. I would buy 10 of them.
Yes, Mayor.
Ms. Villalobos?
Um, and I'm certainly aware that you're in need. Did we go out for bid, and this was the best one, or only one um, company came out for bid?
So when we go through the cooperative a bit, just like the police department did, what happens is that most government entities use co-ops because they do the bidding process for you. So they guarantee a good price for government entities, federal entities, and that is why it's allowed through our purchasing manual to be able to do the co-op.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
I just had a question about the sweeper. Does it come with any kind of warranty? And does our mechanic, or do they offer like a small training to a mechanic so he can do the maintenance on it?
Correct. So I do know that Mr. Medina was the one that met with the actual purchaser and is aware of what it entails. Mr. Medina has left our meeting. He was not feeling good today, but we can definitely send you that information through email. But most of everything that we purchase comes with a warranty, and we don't do purchases, or if it has a maintenance period, because sometimes they'll maintain it for 2 years or 1 year. We always make sure that we take advantage of that.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to Planning and Zoning Department, item number 21, discussion and action on the preliminary and final plat approval for Horn subdivision, being all of tracks 4D, 2S, and 4D, 2T, Block 3, Socorro Grant located on 10678 Horn Circle.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joe Terrazas, building official. This application is for subdivide 2 tracts of land to create 4 lots. I'm going to show you the location of this property. This property is located on Horn Circle. It's right in front of the Fiesta Mercado. And the purpose of this is to subdivide. The first 3 lots would have 1/3 of an acre. Lot number 4 on the right side would have half an acre. I'm going to show you the plat. This is how they're trying to subdivide it, to build a house on each lot. There is no need to extend any infrastructure from the city. Everything is already there. So this is just basically 2 lot splits in one plat. I don't know if you have any questions about this.
Mr. Perez?
Job, thank you for the presentation. So then, there's water and sewer connections already there?
Yes, sir. All those services are readily accessible. They also have irrigation water rights, but they're going to lose them the moment they connect to the city's water. Yes, everything is readily accessible to these properties.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mayor, we do have Mr. Vaquera on the phone if you all have any questions for him. He's the owner.
Um, I have a question for Mr. Are they gonna? I'm sorry, Mr. Job. So right now it's zone R1, correct? And it's gonna
Yes.
continue in R1, correct?
Yes, the zoning is not gonna change. It's just gonna be subdivided. That's correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 22, discussion and action on a conditional use permit for a daycare in Lot 25, Block 3, Valle del Sol subdivision located at 10281 Valle del Mar.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Second.
Yes, good afternoon. This is an application for a conditional use permit. This property is located on Valle del Mar. There is already an existing adult daycare. According to the owner, they have 2 adults that they care for. They live in this house. It is a residential zone. It is allowed under the R3 ordinance. But the only problem is that they are required to have a conditional use permit. It was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommend that this is approved with the condition that before the business registration is granted, we want the Planning and Zoning Department to report this business to the Texas Human Health Services, the Health and Human Services, to make them aware that there is this business existing in this property. We also need to go back and do an inspection for ADA requirements. According to the owner, they do have the provisions that are necessary, but we still need to go out there and do a final inspection before a business registration is granted.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you. Job, just for clarification, so they already have a business going? They already have a daycare going?
Yes, that is correct. And the way we found out is because somebody reported that there was a business operating in this premises. And we sent a code enforcer out there. We found out, yes, it's true. They do have a business operating, and that's the reason why we're here. They're asking for permission to continue operating.
So
If
they're not,
the
I'm sorry, so just another point of clarification. So then they're not looking to increase the size of clients or patients that they have, correct?
That's correct. They just want to keep the 2 patients that they have. They are aware that if they increase to a capacity over 4 patients, then they would not be allowed because other restrictions apply. They will have to report to the state as an assisted living facility, and they don't have the room for that. They don't have any plans to house any more patients, according to the owner.
So at this point, and I'm sorry, just one more point. So at this point, are they compliant in terms of safety and security? Because I know that we're talking about ADA and all that stuff, but as far as the safety of the property, is there anything that they need to comply with?
Well, like I said, that's something that we would find out once we go out there. If the permit is granted, we have to go to the premises and make sure that everything is safe to continue operating. The way it looks right now, this is the house. And we still need to go out there and make sure that they don't exceed the maximum allowed of oxygen tanks, and they have the ADA ramps and grab bars and all that stuff that is required for ADA compliance. If you see it from the front, it doesn't look like a commercial property. It doesn't look like there's any activity in there. It's just a residential, just like any other home. And patients are living inside. So we still need to go out there and do an inspection.
Yeah, I just, that always kind of, not that if they didn't seek a permit to begin with, I just become a little bit hesitant, that's all. I mean, it's just one of those things where it just sends up a red flag, that's all.
And also to let you know that the owner did mention that they were not aware that they were supposed to get a permit from the city for this type of business.
But even the state, don't they have to have a state permit also to have this kind of facility?
It's only required if they're gonna exceed a maximum of 4 patients, then they would need to report as an assisted living facility.
Okay, thank you for the information. Sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize your time, but thank you.
Mr. Duran?
Jim, does this violate spot zoning laws?
Not, I mean, not that I can discern. It's zoned correctly. I mean, it's the special permit. It's the conditional use permit. I don't think it does.
Okay.
And I would welcome, I mean, Job knows as much about that. Job and Mike know as much about that as I do. I'd welcome Job's thoughts on that.
Yes, and also to let you know, there are other daycares in the same subdivision that have been previously approved. The other daycares are for children. This one is for adults. This is the first adult daycare in the subdivision, but the other daycares, and I'm sorry.
Well, thank you, Job. And Mr. Duran, I was interested in what Job had to say, and I think it is meaningful that there are other, home-based daycare facilities in the area, and that kind of solidifies my belief that that's really not spot zoning. And I go back, I mean, if you draw back to the 30,000-foot level, in the last 20 or 30 years, statewide, there has been a legislative preference for home-based care facilities, both for adults and children like this, than for larger facilities in more commercially oriented areas. All of that is a long way of saying, yeah, that's not spot zoning. You're good.
Okay.
Ms. Villalobos?
And this is a daycare, right, Job, where they don't leave their they don't leave them there overnight. It's they drop them off and pick them up every day.
According to the owner, when they applied for the permit, they described it as a daycare. However, when we had the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they did mention that they do stay there overnight, 2 patients. They have their own bedroom and they sleep in their own bedroom.
So is that considered still a daycare or an assisted living?
I guess that would be a question for Jim. I'm not sure. You can call it a daycare.
That's almost like a foster home. And I don't think we recognize that in our zoning ordinance. So the daycare facility is probably the correct. I mean, it's probably the correct conditional use permit, which probably is a good reason to think maybe we need to go back and re-examine that ordinance. But with foster homes too, I mean, again, you can go back 30 years, both at the state and federal level, and there's been a preference for that instead of larger kind of institutional facilities where they can care for patients like that. There's been a push toward more home-based or community, what they call community-based care facilities, and this is a good example of that.
Mr. Perez?
But I think that that's an important point to look at. If we have patients that are spending the night there, then could that call into question other state requirements that home daycares don't necessarily have in terms of medical assistance, emergency assistance, and those kinds of things? I mean, that to me, yes, I understand the building part of it, but what about the emergency aspect of it?
Yeah, the answer is yes, it does, and I would say yes, it does. It's largely at the state level. Some requirements are federal because they're triggered by Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement eligibility requirements. But my advice on that subject would be those are state requirements and federal requirements that should be left to the state and federal government for operational concerns. Our interest is really limited to land use. And for land use, I think you've got enough to say, okay, we'll give you the conditional use permit.
Ms. Villalobos?
But I also think that we should probably add it to our ordinance because it just clarifies and we don't have to go through this, or, if there's other council down the road, this will be recognized as an ordinance that we can use for assisted living for under 4 patients.
That's an interesting point. And my suggestion on that would be that that's a good kind of project for Mike. My point is, yeah, off the top of my head, that seems like a good idea, that we should have a more specific zoning classification that more closely matches this kind of facility. That's more narrowly tailored to match this kind of facility. But I'm not comfortable telling you definitively, let's do that. And so my point is, that's a good issue for Mike to task Mike with, and have him do some investigation and some benchmarking and find out what other municipalities in the state are doing on that specific issue, and maybe come back to you and with a proposal.
Agreed.
Mr. Perez?
Just one final thought. Then, so we've been made aware that it is probably a facility that allows the patients to stay overnight. So would it be our due diligence just to report that to the state then? Like Job had indicated that he was going to report the business to the state.
You can. I don't think it's required. I mean, again, that's, the licensure by the state for that purpose is licensure by the state for that purpose, and they'll decide who they do and don't license. I don't think it does any harm to report it to them, but it's certainly not required.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
I just have a comment. I don't know who they're taking care of, but maybe it's their parents. Once they start asking for any assistance from the state, then they have to make their house a daycare.
They have to fully equip it as a daycare.
Right,
for
and
assisted
maybe
living.
that's why they didn't do it before, or they didn't ask for permits. Again, I don't know what the situation is, but it could be. It could be that they're taking care of the parents and they decided to get some sort of assistance from the state, and that's how it becomes a daycare.
And we do have Jose Reyes, the owner, as a speaker. Mr. Reyes,
Sí,
¿se firmó para hablar en este artículo?
sí se me firmé.
¿Tiene algo que decir?
No, todo está claro. Nomás quería saber si el permiso lo van a aprobar o me voy a esperar hasta que se pongan de acuerdo.
Gracias. Rubén Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Did we lose him? Oh, no, he's there. Mr. Nevares?
Mr. Nevares is absent. Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes, and I would also like to see if we can look into our ordinance for this. Ms. Rodarte? Yes, ma'am, please. Thank you. Yes.
Item 23, discussion and action on a conditional use permit for a mechanic shop on lots 7 and 8, Block 3, Algodon subdivision located at 10109 Socorro Road.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
This is an application for a conditional use permit. This property is located on Socorro Road. The address is N109. There is already a mechanic shop there. They came in to apply for a conditional use permit. The reason is because there's been several mechanic shops for a while. However, according to our records, we couldn't find any mechanic shop operating after the year 2017, which means that we don't have any way to demonstrate that the use of this property was continuous. So the new owner that came in, they were found operating with a mechanic shop due to some of the violations on the property. The owner has been made aware that there's some violations that need to be abated before the permit is approved. As you can see, all these vehicles that are on the premises, they already started taking them out and cleaning up the property. This business was presented to the Historical Landmark Commission because it is within the historical district. In the year 2016, it looks like they were granted a certificate of appropriateness to allow them to have the mechanic shop there. But right now, with the new owner is asking for the conditional use permit to be allowed to continue operating in the same premises. Historically, the property has not been modified except for the paint. The building was painted in 2017. It was approved by the Historical Landmark Commission. And some of the violations that were found are exceeds the amount of signs that are allowed in the property. And of course, the vehicles and the parking requirements. We did speak to the owner of the property and they're willing to do whatever it takes to bring it up to code. But the first thing that they need is to be granted a conditional use permit to continue operating.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you. This is the shop that I've talked to the city manager about. Joe, how recent were those pictures? Because I'll be very honest, that area, that lot or the shop had junk cars in the back, and so and again, it was an eyesore, especially after the building next to it was torn down. So you could see all in the back of it. And so I just want to make sure or ask how recent were those pictures that you showed?
The pictures that I just showed on the screen were taken approximately in March of 2020. I know that, and we know that there are still some things that need to be cleaned up. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen. And when I spoke to the owner personally, and I explained to him about some of the things that they need to remove from the property, and he agrees. The only thing is that he is asking for a little bit of time just because of the amount of things that they have to remove. It might not be done within 30 days. They might need more time.
And if I may, as a follow-up question, what about the environmental requirements? I mean, like, again, I haven't been on the property, but as far as if they're doing oil changes and those kinds of things, where are they storing the oil? All the environmental requirements that they need to follow.
Yeah, so that's something that we need to do once they are granted the conditional use permit. We do need to go to the premises and do an inspection, make sure that there's no oil spills after they clean up the property, and see if they have all the requirements from TCEQ. If not, then we're gonna have to require some additional documentation to include an environmental site assessment and everything that is necessary to make sure that there's no more contaminants left on the soil. If there are contaminants found on the soil, then they're gonna have to provide us a remediation plan to make sure that the property is clean before they're granted a business registration.
So then, the conditional use permit you're proposing that we provide a conditional use permit before they clean the property, or as they're cleaning the property?
Yeah, so they need to have the permit, and then before they're allowed to continue operation, that's when we grant the business registration. Before they're granted the registration, we need to make sure that the premises are clean. So the first step is to grant the permit.
Because Mr. Rodarte, you and I have talked about this area before, and that's I just I'm just concerned because it's been like that for years, and I don't know, it's just one of those things where we're trying to combat junk cars, and I don't know if, I mean, yes, they may be cleaning up now, but doesn't mean that it won't start up again. That's just a concern I have. That's all.
I'm going to agree with you, Mr. Perez, 100%. I think that, I mean, they're clearly in violation, and they have been, for years now. I think the last registration we have on record was since 2017. And we have to look at Socorro Road is what do we want it to look in the future? Do we want another mechanic shop there? Right now, I know they're operating as one, but they're operating illegally since they don't have this conditional permit. So it's up to this council to allow them or not. But I have passed through there several times, and there is a lot of junked vehicles. It looks like a junkyard.
Again, because it's my area, and I pass on that area daily. The pace of them cleaning up that area is very slow. And again, it's right next to the mission. It's in walking distance from the mission. It's in walking distance from the mission cemetery. And so if we're looking to improve the Socorro area, the Socorro Road, this isn't going to do it. And so in my opinion, is I wouldn't go for this.
Agree. You know how I feel about that.
Ms. Villalobos?
I 100% agree with you, gentlemen, but I also feel for the business owner. And the business is already there. And so I know he's saying 30 days is not enough for him to clean up a mess that has been there, I'm sure, for many, many, many years. And so therefore, where do we go from there? I know we want to clean up Socorro. I hear you 100%. I would love to clean up Socorro overnight too. However, if we were to deny this, then this business is the person that just purchased this property. Job, when did he purchase this property?
According to him, he said he bought it about 5 years ago. So it used to belong to someone else. They had several mechanic shops operating there before, but this owner, he's had it for about 5 years, more or less.
So he had a permit in 2017, or who took out the permit in 2017?
So they had a permit before 2017, all the way down to when the city started. So this business has always been there. The problem is that they just stopped registering or renewing their business in 2017. But we don't have any record of if they were operating or not.
Well, I understand that, but who took out the permit in 2017? If he's had the property 5 years, that means that he took out the permit, the new owner, in 2017.
According to him, he doesn't take out the permits, it's the tenants, because he rents out the property to other people.
Gotcha.
So whoever was the tenant at the time would have taken out the permit.
Okay. Ms. Rodarte?
Job, my understanding is that the person wanting to take out the permit right now is renting. Correct? So who's responsible to cleaning the area, the property owner or the person that's renting?
It's the property owner who is requesting the permit for the tenant.
Okay.
And the reason we're bringing him up is because there's an ordinance that says that once the business stops operating for more than 6 months, then it can no longer stop, or they can no longer continue operating until they meet the new standard. So for this reason, we had to contact the tenant, and we found out, well, we're not the owners, we're the tenant. So we made contact with the actual owner, and the owner is the one who applied for this type of use to allow him to continue renting the property to these folks.
Thank you, Job.
Mr. Duran?
Job, can we, not issue the permit until everything is cleaned up?
Yes, that is an alternative. If you deny it today, then they would not be allowed to reapply until after a year. We're gonna have to wait a full year before they can come back. And I believe that should be more than enough time to clean up the property.
But I mean, can we, because he's asking for 30 more days, can we just put it on there? You have 30 days to clean it up, then you can get your permit. Or can we be a good faith and see if they'll bring the property up to code?
And by the way, you saw the images on the screen earlier. It does look that they're gonna need a lot more than 30 days. Like the owner said, it's not gonna happen like we wish, but I mean, that's a condition you can always impose, I believe. Jim?
Well, what I'm thinking of is not shutting down a business, but what I'm thinking of, they need to bring it up to code and give them a certain amount of time. If they don't, then you shut them down.
Mr. Reyes?
Are we gonna have an issue if we close down the business and him taking all the work to his house? I mean, would that be an option if we close it down and he still has to turn in whatever work he has? Is he gonna take it to his house and work in his house? Well, he can, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
We don't know if they have any other shops nearby or if they own any other businesses, but I don't have an answer for that question. I don't know how they would do it if we're denied. I don't know how they operate.
Job, can I ask that our ordinance and our procedure for conditional use permits, that it doesn't have a deadline for council to act on it, does it?
I don't believe so.
It doesn't that I can see. Mr. Duran, the reason I ask is, I mean, you could postpone it for longer. You could say, we'll give you the permit. We're not acting on the permit. We'll revisit it in 60 days, and we want it cleaned up before you get it. I'm not sure that that has the effect you want, or that your staff, your administration is going to be able to affect that, but that's one option.
Well, yeah, because what I was saying is, yeah, give him, he's asking for more than 30 days. Do not give him a permit until, we'll postpone it for 60 days. We'll revisit it. If everything's up to code, then we can either, if it's not up to code, we deny it. If it's up to code, we let him continue, or we grant the permit.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you. I'm just concerned, and I'm not against the businesses, but what I am against is that if we have businesses, because there's ways of having a car shop or a mechanic shop without having to pile or have junk cars on the property. That to me is something that maybe poses a hazard. I don't know, but certainly it goes against what we've been trying to fight in the city as far as having junk cars. And so is there a way that, and again, and I don't want to get into a situation where we give them we give them whatever permit they need, then we call it to their attention that the junk cars need to be removed. They already know, and they'd rather take the citation than to move on clearing out their property.
Mr. Nevares?
That's exactly the point. Let's go back to the gandalas. I mean, we'll just pay the fine and we'll continue operating and we'll continue being non-compliant. I agree with Mr. Duran. 30 days. The owners had this property for a while. The guy's just playing the game, guys. Come on. When are we going to clean up all this crap? Hefty fine. Let's do it now. Have them work on it quick. If not, then don't give them the permit. Why don't the city of El Paso let people do crap like that? Oh, let's go to Socorro. Let's go to Sanelli. Let's go to Clint. Because we let them. When is this gonna change? Come on, guys.
Ms. Villalobos?
I agree with all you gentlemen. So let's come up with a happy medium. I agree with not giving him the permit now until he does the cleanup. Give him, Mr. Perez, you say they have a lot of junk cars. I understand, Mr. Nevares, where you're coming from. I think giving them, 60 days, they can comply in 60 days. Number three, I think we have a lot of businesses like that. And until we hit every single one of them that are out there operating the same way these are, um, it's just a process. It's just the process. This last administration and now this administration, I believe, are the ones that started trying to clean up the city. And it's just, there's just so many businesses out there. And it's just going to take some time, you know, to.
That's understandable. Well, we do one at a time.
It's just that, please understand that the prominence of this location, it is right on the Mission Trail. It's right next to the old Mission. So if we're looking to improve tourism, again, everyone has a right to make a living. That's not the issue. The issue is that if you're living in the historic area and there are conditions that you need to comply with, then do it so that you can stay in operation and you won't be bothered by the city and you can make a fair living at it.
Mr. Duran?
I think the historical part of the city said that they could operate. The planning and zoning board said they could operate, or they went for approval. Let's give them a break. Tell them you got 60 days. Then you will be shut down. Not just not issued a permit, but shut down. That nothing can happen there. And then it'll be a year before they can reapply. So they'll have to know they got, it doesn't take that long to pick up a car, take it to the kilo, and turn it into some cash. Now, if if the cars are repairable, that's something else. Then they repair them, but not leave them there junked for 2 years until they can repair them. Let's give them the break, 60 days to get his act together and comply with the signs, because that is way too many signs. But the historical gave him the go ahead, planning and zoning commission gave him the go ahead, the city gave him the go ahead, as long as he could get the permit. Now let's give him the 60 days. If it doesn't happen, then wham, we just shut it down.
Mr. Rodarte?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Just for clarification, HLC does not oversee the zoning of any property or type of business. All they do is the aesthetics, and what they actually approved was a banner, but nothing having to do with what type of business they have in that property. That's not what HLC is there for. Okay.
Okay.
Just-
But
just
they-
as
And even then they
just
don't
for
comply
clarification.
with the aesthetics of what the historical district requires.
Correct.
Mr. Reyes?
Do they have to pay any fees? Like, for example, the businesses when they're found not compliant? I mean, for 3 years?
I believe there's a fee if they have to go to court, then the judge will establish the amount. If it turns into a citation, there might be a fee.
Ms. Villalobos?
So now that Mrs. Rodarte brought up the banner and the historical banner that they need to comply with, they're aware of that too, Job, and they're planning to change that as well?
I don't know if this new owner is aware of that, but we will make sure that they are informed and that they are aware of the sign requirements and all that stuff. Because this letter that I have on my hand here, this was signed by the Historical Landmark Commission. And as you can see right here, it does say where we were made aware that there's a mechanic shop on the premises. Like Ms. Rodarte said, they don't approve these kind of businesses, but they approve the aesthetics of the business. So if they want to do any improvements or rehabilitate the building or whatever they plan, they are going to have to go back to HLC and present what kind of colors they're going to be using, how is the property going to be improved, even if they're going to put pavement on the parking spaces, they are going to have to go to HLC for all that stuff.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
I agree with Mr. Duran. Let's give them the permit for the 60 days and come back. If they didn't fix the issues, we can close them down for the year.
It's like the saying goes in Spanish, "Sobre aviso no hay engaño." You know,
Right.
they're fully informed and they have to comply.
Mr. Reyes, would you like to amend your motion?
Motion to approve
For 60 days.
for 60 days.
While they clean the property.
Bring it up to code.
Right, for 60 days, so I can bring it up to code.
So
Second.
and bring back in 60 days.
Okay,
We'll
bring back.
But I'm sorry, but we're not giving them a permit, right?
We're getting them a permit for the 60 days.
No, we're
No?
not giving them a permit, right? Joe, no permit. We're allowing.
Until you're giving them 60 days to bring it up to code. And if they can't meet a deadline in 60 days, then the permit will not be granted.
That sounds reasonable.
And I second that motion.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Yes.
Moving on to city manager. Item number 25, discussion and action on approving engaging with SBNG certified public accountants for auditing fiscal year 2019 through 2020.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This was actually brought up in October 2020, and it was approved. However, we were under the lame duck period. We just wanted to make sure that we comply with our requirements, so it was brought up to our new council, just to make sure that it gets approved. And this is to approve our fiscal audit that we do every year, in order to make sure that we're following processes and procedures that are required by the government.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Item number 26, discussion and action to approving evaluation procedures for city manager Adriana Rodarte.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Second.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. The following presentation was put together by researching and receiving information from the Strategic Government Resources, evaluating the city manager and best management practices. I also use League of Cities and the International City/County Management Association. Okay, so background, as many council members or managers who, can you open the whole, okay. Apologize. Let me share it. I'll share it instead. I apologize. Just give me a second. Can you all see?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So as any council member or manager who has ever conducted or received a performance evaluation knows that the process can be sometimes uncomfortable, frustrating, and or disappointing. Just one moment. When it comes to evaluating a manager performance, there are no standard models to follow. This is kind of what we looked at. And again, we're getting information from different sources. Oftentimes, the process is a result of a manager's previous practice or recommendation. Others reflect a permutation of approaches that may have a long-standing history in the organization over time, but are seldom reviewed for their effectiveness. Best management practices are a product of a thorough and deliberative process to reflect the importance the council place on both communication and the council manager relationship. Regardless of what performance evaluation process a council and manager chooses to utilize, it is important to realize that there are many benefits that can be derived from a quality performance review process. Increasingly, the demands for greater public accountability and closer media scrutiny dictate the council be prepared to defend the compensation package afforded managers with a better response than he or she is doing a great job. Citizens and stakeholders are typically more interested in the results that have been attained and having a sense that their council and manager are on the same page, not with different agendas. In relationship of trust and support, council members and the city manager can have an honest dialogue about what is being accomplished, where the gaps may be, and how to maintain progress. Good relationships promote candor and constructive planning. Common challenges that are identified not just in our city but in multiple cities throughout the state or the region. The most common challenges managers and councils face with the evaluation process revolve around four general areas: failure to undertake evaluations, lack of credible appraisal process, lack of understanding the council manager form of government, and lack of communication. What is a manager evaluation? The process of planning, reviewing, and providing feedback on the performance of the city manager. A means of demonstrating organizational accountability to citizens, employees, and local stakeholders. A means of maintaining alignment between established city council goals and achievements attained. A means of determining the need to further professional development, education, or training of the manager. An element of decision regarding future compensation. Required components. There are two fundamental aspects of performance that must be accounted for in any legitimate manager performance evaluation process: technical results that should be accomplished and the extent, efficiency, and effectiveness with which specific established goals and expectations can be tracked to determine success. Behavioral leadership skills that should be demonstrated, reflecting a wide range of interpersonal and other subjective factors that are other not always easy to define and even harder to measure. Recommended approaches is first talk with your council about the level of satisfaction with your existing process. Paying close attention to your council's wants and needs on how you can reinforce your role and responsibilities as their manager. Second, examine an array of approaches that other communities utilize and speak with local government consultants and peers for ideas. What has worked for them, what hasn't, and most importantly, why. Finally, determine what are some of the specifics you could recommend and implement to improve the quality of the performance review process and enhance the degree of public accountability. Here are the references of where I gathered most of this information, and that's part of your presentation. The examples of the city manager evaluations that I'm about to share is first is the example is from our former Mayor Ruiz administration, used for my predecessor, Mr. Norfleet, is the first evaluation that was used on him. Okay, so this is what council used back when Mr. Norfleet was here. I don't know if I'm going too quickly. I think I am.
Madam Mayor, just if I make a quick
Mr.
comment.
Pettis?
Thank you. This part of the, this is when we set up a rubric for Mr. Norfleet for his evaluation, so that we could all provide a range in terms of what we thought in terms of his performance, and then we took an average. If I remember correctly, I think it was an average of that, and so that's where we would look at again. Look at different aspects of it and provide a rating for his performance.
Correct. The second evaluation that I'm providing as an example was found in the website of League of Cities that some other cities use. And you can see it's probably the same format, just in different, same concept, different format. It talks about internal administration, your personal management, getting the job done. It talks about different things. And the third one was found in the International City County Management Association. Right, so this is still the second one. And we're moving on to the third one, which is this one. And it's just a template that is provided for council. And it's a total of 7 pages. And again, it's same concept, different format. Okay, and that was again found in the International City County Management Association. Our Human Resources Department will be sending council information regarding the key roles in a council manager government, so we can have a better understanding of that. What it is, how it works, and the benefits to our community when you have a council manager form of government. And this pretty much concludes my presentation. I don't know if you all have any questions, concerns.
Mr. Pettis?
I like the fact that, again, at that time, the council was in favor of having a Likert scale, which is that 1 through 5 scale. If anything, in terms of improving the scale the format, is that anything from 1 through 3, or 1, 2, and 3, that we would provide evidence as to why we're rating them, whether it's Ms. Rodarte or any other manager, why we would rate them, either as weak, in that area from 1 to 3, because you want to find out, you want to make sure that the weaknesses are attended to, but for what reason? I mean, because it's very easy to say, well, I just don't like, what he or she has been doing, and I'm going to grade them low or rate them low. I would always advocate that we should, and again, hindsight is being 2020. I would like to see justifications for any rating from 1 through to 3, so that it serves as a point of reference for the manager to improve, to be able to say, okay, well, these are the points I need to improve upon. Let me get to work on it. Madam Mayor, one more question.
Go ahead, Mr. Pettis.
Adriana, so are you all coming back with more information, or is that how you were going to do it?
Correct. So I was asked at the last council meeting to bring something to council. I brought you 3 different options. You're all allowed to use something different, or I was just giving, like a one-on-one on how the evaluations take place and the challenges that most cities encounter, not just ours. Okay, so but it's really up to you all what evaluation from 1 to 3 that you are wanting to select, or if you want me to go out and look for more and bring back to council. I'm just, following instructions and making sure that we understand each other and that I have a clear direction from all 6 of you in what way you want us to proceed.
Madam Mayor, do you think that we could maybe um, take what has been presented and then we can work on it? And then for next council meeting, maybe propose a final instrument to see if the council would approve it?
Yes, definitely. Honestly, I like number 2 and 3 better just because they provide for comments and it's a little bit more comprehensive.
And that's fine. I agree. I just like again. I just want. I would like to be able to add the justifications for any rating from 1 to 3. Again, because given the not this council, but given the fact that sometimes councils can become political, and use and sometimes go after staff. So we want to make sure that it doesn't become, an I got you tool just to run any manager out unjustly. And so we need to make sure that we own up to the comments that we provide as a council for the manager.
Mr. Reyes?
Should we pick one of the examples and work with one of them instead of just, I guess, working with the 3 of them? So pick one of the examples and then work with it and bring it back in our next meeting.
Mr. Duran?
I'd like the example number 2, except like Mr. Pettis said, let's on every question leave a space for comment, not just at the end. Every question that we have, leave a space, and then if you do rate it from 1 to 3, it has to be filled out. Now, also, I don't know if we can do that, is have evaluations from our department heads. That'll give us an idea of how the city manager is implementing what we direct, because that way we can know from down below what's happening also. I don't know if we can put that in there too.
Yes, I believe we can make a section for department heads as well, maybe towards the end of the evaluation. And just as you mentioned, we can do comments after each question. I agree with that. I believe we have public speakers.
We can work and then bring it back for the next meeting. We have ideas now, we can each add to it or take away from it. But I think we're pretty much all in agreement with the second example, and then how we can improve on that second example.
Food for thought, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Pettis.
In terms of having the employee or the subordinate portion of it, how would that look like? Would it be in an anonymous? Would they anonymously rate the city manager? How would that look like? I mean, I just that's a legitimate question. I just don't know how would that look.
Mr. Duran?
I think it would have to be anonymous because of the fact that, but all of our department heads are professionals. They're going to let us know what's going on. But if we have them put their name on it, then that kind of leaves them open for any kind of retribution. But this way, it's transparent from the top down, because we're going to have our names on there, and it'll be, like I said, all of our department heads are all professionals. I don't think that it could get politicized from the bottom up.
Ms. Villalobos?
And on that same note, who would they address it to? Does it go straight to mayor? Does it go in a box? How would that, and is it only for the department heads or is it for uh, other employees?
Mr. Olarte?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. And that's kind of one of the biggest challenges as the city manager is that not understanding the city, council city manager type of government, right? Those are the biggest challenges is because how would we know if I'm evaluating my department heads and knocking them down? It happened with Chief Maldonado, and things happen outside of this scope because you're trying to enforce or hold them accountable. And then now they have a different venue. I think that the first 6 months, I really do feel that council should take a course that explains what form of government that we're in, what role we all play. I play a specific role, council plays a specific role, department heads play a specific role, the public plays a specific role. And I think it's important for us to understand what our role is as, for you to evaluate me, for me to be able to evaluate my staff. I think, I really do recommend that we do that before we select what type of evaluation that you're all trying to perform. I think Mr. Perez had said that you all take it home, review them, and then bring back your ideas at the next meeting. What we ask is that we just receive the backup when it's available, because then we get, from the public that we're not providing specific backup information.
Mr. Perez?
I think that in terms of organizationally, um, the idea is that we as a body supervise Ms. Rodarte, right? So she is the only employee that we actually give a performance rating to, because I think you're even the chief is under you, correct, Adriana?
Yes.
So she would be the only employee so then as a body, she is our employee to supervise and to evaluate. Okay. I think that what you're talking about, Mr. Duran, which is a valid point, I understand what you're saying, would be in the form of an employee satisfaction survey as an organization where you identify certain areas of, is your supervisor, does your supervisor provide leadership? Does your supervisor, and there's other formats for that as well. And so you're taking the employees' input about that, right? And then you can integrate it with the evaluation of the city manager, because what you're saying is that, okay, city manager, in the survey, the responses to these questions are within this area. So then there has to be some kind of plan that you have to do. And again, I'm just speaking hypothetically. You would have to have some kind of plan in addressing the employees and their needs, and to bring up the morale, because yes, part of the organization is having a good morale, right? And so, but I think that shouldn't be the input shouldn't be in the document. I think the results of a survey, in terms of the gauge where the concerns are, that becomes part of the survey. That becomes part of the instrument. That we saw that overall this is where we're at as a city in terms of the morale, in terms of the employees. That is what then we can go ahead and have a standard for in terms of providing feedback for her. This is an area that you need to work on, that kind of thing.
We do have several speakers for this item.
Mr. Perez, would you like to amend your motion?
So then at this point, I'll go ahead and, so do we want to take the three back, or do we want to do the two, the second model, or we can do this. We'll use the second model as the template, and then we'll review the other two, the remaining two, to see if we want to, because they might have some statements that we want to include. So can we do that? I'd like to go ahead and amend my motion to use the second example as the template, and then review the other two remaining examples to see if we want to incorporate some of those aspects in that second model or
And
second template.
you will provide feedback at our next meeting?
Yes, with feedback at our next meeting. Yes.
Second.
And our first speaker is Elia Garcia.
Ms. Garcia left the meeting.
Ms. Garcia has left the meeting. Our next speaker is Pablo Barrera.
Yes, good evening, council members, mayor. Mr. Perez, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Through my work experience in my life, I have never, when I was a superior, my subordinates never gave me a rating. It was always my superiors that rated me. I've always known that that's the way it should be. That's always the practice that I've seen. And you're right. I think we were reading each other's minds. If you want feedback from the subordinates, then maybe a survey is a good alternative to get that feedback to guide Ms. Rodarte in the right direction to help her improve where she needs improvement. But yes, I mean, I totally agree that subordinates don't rate their superiors, period. And you guys, it's like asking Ms. Rodarte to rate you guys. That's not gonna happen, right? You guys are the ones that rate her. So, I mean, Mr. Perez, kudos to you. I mean, I'm listening to you and it's just, I'm, you know, wowed by the knowledge that you have in the direction you're going. And I mean, I was understanding you, I was reading your mind. So I completely agree with the direction you're going in. And I hope the council follows your lead on that. Thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes, yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez, Mr. Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 27, discussion and action to approve the installation of streetlights in Las Lunas subdivision 1013 and 1015 Half Moon.
Good evening, Mayor and
Motion
Council.
to approve for discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The reason this item was brought up is we have several residents from Las Lunas subdivision that have encountered different incidents in the month of December. That's when it was brought up to my department. And there has been several incidents regarding vandalism and burglary and some drug activity in the area, which prompted them requesting a street light. I don't know if you all are familiar with Las Lunas subdivision, but it's a brand new subdivision. And the reason we're bringing this up is we did get a quote from El Paso Electric saying that they can implement two street lights. However, our building official is providing us information that is not recommended in the area just because it's such a new area, new subdivision. I know that there is new development that's about to come up that's going to connect to them. And that was a concern. However, the lighting that is actually in place right now is meeting the standards. But because of the concern of the constituent, I do feel it's not my decision to say no or to say yes just because of where it's located. So I'm bringing this to you all for discussion and see if you all have any questions.
Ms. Villalobos?
Ms. Rodarte, at this time, I know we have a street list going. Do we have a light list going for, I know that we've approved some lights in the past and I don't even know if we completed them or not. Do we have a list going?
Correct. So we have a master list for the whole city of streetlights.
That need to be installed? that
No,
were
ma'am,
approved?
that are currently installed in the
Installed?
area.
No, no, I'm saying, do we have a, you know how we have a street list that we are working on to complete?
Correct. So right now we don't have any pending lighting except for this one at this time.
And
Ma-
I'm sorry, I apologize. And I know that right now it's not recommended because of our ordinances.
No, so um, just as an example, we just installed some lighting on Worsham Street, right? There was some concerns out there. Staff goes out there, we review, we assess, and it was pitch black. There was certain items, it's an older community that we're like, it definitely needs lighting. During our budget time under street maintenance, we allocate funding for those type of situations. So those don't come up to council because we have, through our budget, are able to implement those when we see there's an actual safety concern and there is no lighting. The reason this is coming up to council is because it's a newer subdivision that clearly I can't justify adding two more lights without council's approval.
Mr. Duran?
Have they gone out there to check to see if the existing lights are working? Because I know I've gone to new subdivisions and the lights aren't turned on. So we need to send somebody out there at night and make sure that all of the lights are working first before we can even think about putting in new lighting. If the lighting's already there, it's just not working.
So we have assessed the area and the lighting there is actually working. We do have staff member that goes every quarter and evaluates the city to make sure that the lights are in working condition. And if they're not, we can report into a Paso Electric. So that employee for 2 weeks monitors the city during the nighttime to just make sure that our street lights are actually working, or, are they on all day? Are they flickering? And we send out and troubleshoot those lightings. The lighting that is being requested here is in areas where they believe activity takes place and there's not sufficient lighting in those streets.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you. So then when we're talking about activities, are these activities measurable? I mean, are there like reportable instances that that they've gone up in number in terms of stuff that goes on?
Yes, so
Or
our police department actually did do a project out there. They went out and conducted. There was a couple of traffic, and the drug activity is happening throughout the whole city, not in just that one area. However, there has been reports from these residents that there's things that are happening that are not normal, that used to not happen. And however, I know Chief just sent me the documents today, and we do have him on the line in case he wants to chime in and see what he saw
what
in that
kind? Yeah,
area.
what kind of activities? I'm curious.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dave Burton, Chief of Police. So the city manager and I did meet with the residents who were concerned about this. There was not a little, there was a scary incident that occurred on their piece of property involving an individual who was unknown to them, who actually, when we made contact with them, we found out to be injured and potentially involved in some kind of activity in the neighborhood as a result of an assault, but was not forthcoming with any type of information. And they don't have to be, because at that point they were a victim, but they didn't want to provide anything other than some medical. That was the catalyst to this. So we went back and looked at activity in the neighborhood that has taken the form of there was a burglary, like the city manager said. There were some vehicle breaks, as vandalism and theft. And then there was some suspicious motor vehicle activity involving possession. There was a minor possession charge just recently, actually. So when we met with when we met with the residents, what I committed to was a 2-week saturation patrol. So that's where we go in and we're there 3 shifts, multiple times. We actually had, I believe, 86 patrol checks through the area. We ended up with 3 motor vehicle stops out of that because we were looking for suspicious. The guidelines that we gave to the officers at that point was go ahead and stop anything that's suspicious. Number one, it lets people know if they are parked in dark areas or they're parked on the roadways and they don't belong in the neighborhood. It lets them know we're there, but it also gives us a contact list so we can find out who they are and what they're doing. Again, some of that is consensual, has to be cooperation with the police. Most of the time, we don't have an issue with it, but we are able to do that. So we did perform that. The list went to the city manager to take a look at. We didn't have any major incidents that we recorded in the last 2 weeks. However, we do have, and I don't want to spill too much information. We have a long-term investigation that's going on right now where potentially there is some organized activity that may be occurring in that neighborhood. And that's about all I'm willing to say at this point because otherwise it would be too much.
We do have we have speakers for this item, right?
Mr. Perez, will you amend your motion?
In terms of, well, I guess there is a need, it seems like. I don't know if my colleagues feel the same way. But as far as amending my motion, it was
Your
to
motion was to
approve it.
approve, right?
And so I guess my question before I amend, would lighting help the situation? Would it help alleviate any of the concerns that the residents have?
Chief, your thoughts?
So lighting in itself is a crime prevention tool, okay? It puts people out in an observable situation where if it's a darkened area, there may be criminal type activity, nefarious activity, suspicious activity, whatever you want to call it. All of a sudden, if we shine a spotlight on that or we put them under a light, it kind of takes the area and makes it not so attractive. That doesn't mean that lighting by itself will stop crime, because that's certainly not the case, but it is a crime prevention tool that's recognized in environmental design.
Ms. Villalobos?
So I see where the proposed lighting would take place if it were to get approved. And I'm also looking at the whole subdivision where the lighting is very sporadic in the area. I know that lighting is a tool that could prevent, but there's also other areas that once you put the lighting there, they're going to move on to, in the same neighborhood, to the darker sides. And, at that point, what do we do? Do we come back and put more lights? That's my concern. Not that they're not, it's not valid here, but this whole subdivision only has what we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 lights is what they have for this whole subdivision.
Mr. Reyes?
I'm reading here. It says both locations you requested were not possible. So they're requesting the lights. We went to Pass Electric, and they're saying we cannot install them there. And they're giving one location. Would it just be one light?
So what they're giving is the 1013 and 1015 half moon. On half moon?
Yes. So it would be one light between 10:15 and 10:13.
Correct.
Okay.
No, well, 2 lights, right? One and two, not or. So it's 2 lights. One at 1013 and then one at 1015.
Oh, okay.
So, and they're just across each other,
So we would put 2 lights
right next to each other.
like in one house.
Correct. I mean, that's what Paso Electric came back with. That's not what we requested, but they're telling us that that's what they can do for us.
Okay.
Okay.
So those are the possibilities. Is there a way that we can have maybe the one at 1077, which I believe would have more impact on that area in terms of circumference as it's shown from the other lights?
Correct, but there's El Paso Electric saying there's a fire hydrant there, so that is not
No,
possible.
That's not,
No.
at 1077 is not possible.
Correct.
Well, actually, they're saying 1075 and 1077. Not
Is because of a
possible.
fire hydrant, and the 1072, it has no electrical at location. So meaning they have to run wire, and that's extremely expensive to do.
Because if I may, what happens is that if you have more than one light, you're kind of defeating. I mean, I think that one light in the area may be sufficient only because um, you're you want to have continuous lighting, right? But the thing is that if you have two in the same proximity, then that kind of sets a precedent as far as, we're going to put a light at every location, and that it doesn't really serve the need. I mean, yes, I agree. It's the safety issue. I agree that for that, but about that. But if one light will do, and will to your point, Mayor, if it'll provide enough of a circumference of lighting, why would we need to add an additional light when it could be used somewhere else as well?
Mr. Duran?
I'm looking at the map, and each of the existing lights has a circle around it. And I guess that is how much light is illuminated. And I'm noticing that all of the existing lights either intersect or take a little bit of each other out. In fact, in the front on Calistro and on Red Moon, they really overlap each other quite a bit. And if they can't put any, I don't know where they could put any more, because it seems like it's pretty well saturated already.
Correct, and the current lighting does meet the standard.
Ms. Villalobos?
The incident, which address are we talking about?
So you actually have you have the caller on the line who can describe that to you if
He wants to
they want to
provide
go
Oh,
into
we
that.
don't. We don't have the address where the.
Yeah, but we're protecting victims at that point.
Oh, I
so,
see. I
right.
gotcha. Okay. No, then I'm just trying to see if they're in that, if that area is where the circle does not connect.
It's not specifically where the incident took place. It's actually a little further down in a darkened area, more of a darkened area, where they're reporting that the individuals are parking.
Okay, and if that's the case, would any of these, or if that's the case, the light that the electric company is proposing, the one light, do you think that would cover that darkened area?
I don't have the map. I can't tell you that. I don't have the map in front of me.
Because that would, I mean, that will defeat the purpose, completely defeat the purpose.
So, Madam Mayor, if I may amend my motion
Go ahead, Mr. Perez.
to approve one light, but I would like for staff to make the determination in terms of where it's most, because since we don't have an address and we want to maintain the confidentiality of the victims, for staff to make the appropriate determination as to where that light should be placed.
Ms. Mayor,
Ms. Villalobos?
right now, Chief is looking at the map, so can we hold off right now on the motion to have him answer
Yeah.
the question?
So the map that El Paso is showing with the lumens, and this would have to be checked, okay? Because this is the optimum light coverage. So I don't know if this is LED, halogen, um, a gas-filled type lighting. It all depends on what they've installed. But according to this map, everything is covered within the area that the suspicious activity is being reported.
And the map is provided from our staff to the El Paso Electric for reference.
I'm sorry, one more. So the map, this map, we provided it to the electric company, and the electric company obviously came back and did not say anything about the lighting, the map area where the light shows in the circles. And I'm sorry, I don't know if the people out there can see what we're talking about. And they're the ones that came back and said, this is where the best light would be, which is,
That's where they can install one.
Mhm.
Not that the best lighting is you're requesting. So when we approach El Paso Electric, we say, here's the map, the area.
Mhm.
Can you provide us a quote
Mhm.
between here and here, right? These are the existing lighting,
Mhm.
and then these are the proposed. Then they come back and say, throughout the proposed, we can't do that. What we can do is this.
One more question to Chief. In your opinion, sir, you've been out there at night,
Yes, ma'am.
and was it pretty dark?
It was. I think if you're going to install something, as you get again, so we're talking about the road of Half Moon. That's the roadway of interest. There's a dead end part to that. I think if you were going to make a decision on this, then it would be, I think it's 1072 would be the closest light that would assist on that.
But again, we don't know if it would cover.
Again, because I don't know what kind of lighting they're actually putting in versus what they're telling you the lumens are. Correct, ma'am.
I think we need more information from the electric company before we even make a decision. If they were to put that light there, I would like to see a map of how much they say it would cover and what kind of light they're proposing. And what kind of light they're proposing.
Mr. Duran?
I agree with Ms. Villalobos. I think we need to get input from the police department of where it would be most appropriate. We need to get input from the electric company as to can we do it in that, in that area? And then we can come back and make probably a more informed decision than we'll get the input from the chief as to, where the light would be more efficient, and also from the electric company as if it's feasible.
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Rodarte?
Yes, so the information from El Paso Electric is actually telling you that it's a 100-watt HPS street light or an LED street light that they would be placing between 1013 and 1015. If you look at the map, it has the 1015 and 1013 written with pin that El Paso Electric did, and it tells you exactly where the light would go.
Right. I'm sorry. One more time.
Ms. Villalobos?
And you're absolutely right. I do get that. I just don't know if it's going to cover the area that we need it to be covered.
Yes, so
not us knowing exactly where the incident happened. So
That's why I amended my motion or I'm trying to amend my motion so that we can have input again, because we don't know exactly where it's at because of the situation. That the staff, and which would include Chief Burton, to provide input as to where the best location for the light. And so that's why that would be my motion, is to approve the light with input from staff as to the placement of it.
Ms. Rodarte?
Again, I just want to emphasize that we've assessed the area. So when our staff sends out the information is because we've looked at pictures and at the request that the constituent is making. However, we can't share that with council because it's a privacy issue, right? So the map that we're saying is, here is the proposed ones that the city stated, the green ones is what we proposed. El Paso Electric coming back and saying, no, the closest thing I have to that is what they're proposing right in between.
okay. However,
Does that make it? But
Yes.
I can't share more information because then I am going into and providing addresses and information that really, like Chief said, we're trying to protect the victim.
Again, please pardon the pun, and I don't mean to make a pun, but we're shooting in the dark basically because we don't know where the best location for the light is, and so, and then that means, and if the best location for the light is in that area, it may not be necessarily the area that El Paso Electric is recommending. So we don't know. Literally, I'm at a loss for words, sorry.
So you get an idea with the green ones in the actual picture that you're showing, the map. You see the green ones? Those are proposed. We're proposing, the city saying, can you put lighting here? Because this is where we're having uh, problems, right? Can we, based on the information we received? El Paso Electric sees that and says, no, we can't because this one has fire hydrant and the other one has, right? So the one that they're proposing is closest to one of the areas that we are inquiring about. Do you see the numbers that are written in handwriting? That's El Paso Electric. The green is us telling them this is where we would like one.
Chief Burton?
Mayor, thank you. Yeah, if I was going to put a light in here, it would be the 1072. It would cover the suspicious area. It's not going to cover the incident area, but it's the area where individuals are reporting that the activity takes place. Okay. Again, if you want to give the speaker a chance, they can provide their own information. We just can't do that. All right. That would be up to them.
Mr. Duran?
Can we hear from the speakers and then we can, discuss it more? Let's hear from the people that are actually having the problems and then we can discuss it a little bit more.
Just one quick note.
Ms. Villalobos?
Just because I know Chief doesn't have it in front of him. The electric company is saying behind 1072, Chris Forbes, no electrical at location. So that's not even an option either.
Right. Yes, ma'am, but that would be the best location.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. All righty.
Pablo Barrera?
Yes, you know what? Is there a possibility, I guess, if you guys keep talking about the privacy issue, that maybe, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but can we go into like an executive session or a private session so I can give you those privacy details?
Executive session is only for consultation with the attorney, no?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just saying, that's what I was saying, just something private. Okay, I'll try to do my best to keep the privacy here. Pretty much, the map that you guys are seeing, that's where the incidents have taken place. The overlapping of the lights, I understand that, I think the chief did hit that, the optimal, but however, they don't light the way it's indicated on the map. It's actually because of the type of bulb that is in there. It might only actually light maybe the two houses that are in front of it and to the side of it. That's all it really does. And if you look at the one that's on Chris Forbes, where that light is, the house actually covers a good portion of that light, so it doesn't allow the light to filter into where that dark area is. And when you go into the Half Moon Pass, where all the activity has been taking place, it's pitch black there. It really is. It's really dark. Even I have cameras on the house, and you can't pick up anything. My neighbor even had to put a spotlight, and it's still somewhat dark, and my cameras still don't pick it up.
Mr. Barrera.
I mean, that's just trying to give you guys.
Mr. Barrera, your time is up.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Villalobos?
Thank you.
Is there any other type of lights that are a little bit stronger that we can utilize already the poles that are there?
Perfect. So that's what my suggestion would be is, can we reach out to El Paso Electric and ask them to put in the white LED lights? Because the white LED shine more of a light than the yellow or the halogen or the gas filled tubes.
So then, based on Chief Burton's recommendation, can I go ahead and amend my motion to see if we can go ahead and change out the light bulbs in the current light poles, in the existing light poles, for better coverage?
Will do.
Second.
So okay.
Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Aye.
Item number 28, discussion and action to designate a legislative liaison on legislative initiatives for the 87th legislative session initiatives for the city of Socorro.
Motion to approve for discussion?
Second.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we discussed in our last meeting regarding the advocacy group Forma and how we want to attack this legislative session, we did want to ask council if they want to appoint someone from your board to make sure that you work with this advocacy group and city manager to be able to execute whatever agenda we have in the legislative session. We would like a council member that would provide us input, and then we would report back to council. But that way, this person would be getting information as soon as the city manager is getting information and working with the advocacy group.
Ms. Villalobos?
And this would be just one? It couldn't be several? Or two?
Well, it's up to council. We require one, just, I mean, we don't want to run into the walking quorum situation. But it's completely up to council how you all want to work that. I just want to make sure that we have a voice from council when we are discussing the agenda.
If I may, I would like to recommend, if possible, Madam Mayor, to represent the council in this committee, or whatever we're calling it, but to act as a liaison. I think that would be appropriate.
And I would vote for Mr. Duran.
Any other nominations? Ms. Villalobos?
This is something that I've been waiting for, so I'm going to nominate myself, if I may.
Mr. Duran?
I've already have a very, very good working relationship with Dr. Gonzalez, who is our state rep. I also know Cesar Blanco very well, and I know a lot of the people that, and if you have a good relationship with them, it's easier to get in their front door, and they'll tell you what's really happening behind the scenes. So I'd like to be that person to be able to report back to council.
Ms. Villalobos?
I also would like to know that, tell you that I know District 75, Ms. Gonzalez, bump into her all the time at Mamacitas.
Madam Mayor, may I at this point amend my motion again to and this won't have, and then we won't have the issue of a walking quorum. There's nothing to say that we can't have Mr. Duran and Ms. Villalobos at the same time. So at this point, I'd like to amend my motion to nominate both Ms. Villalobos and Mr. Duran to serve in the function for the legislative agenda.
Second. Want to second that?
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Thank you, yes.
Item number 29, discussion and action to approve legislative agenda for 87th legislative session.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
So before I start my presentation, I do want to say that legislative session that started last week is going to be a bit different due to the pandemic by following public health precautions. However, this session will have pressing issues to address in 140 days. During the 2019 legislative session, we were being asked to support HB 2287 regarding housing authority and to oppose the SB 2 regarding the revenue caps on taxes at the last minute. We do not want to be reactive. We definitely want to be proactive by supporting or opposing bills that have direct impact in our city. We are the second largest city in El Paso County, therefore we need to be able to stand and have an agenda that benefits our community. This legislative session is the most important one yet due to the redistricting on how to handle the reappointment of our single member districts after the census results release in March or April. Also, the CARES Act or any COVID relief funding is on the table. And there are over 80 cities in Texas that have already filed an advocacy group to represent them. El Paso County and the city of El Paso have already approved agendas. With that being said, I want to go ahead and go over a presentation that Ms. Marisa Marquez and Mr. Rick Armendariz assisted us with. Ms. Marisa, do you want to go ahead and present?
Sure. Hello, Mayor, Council. This is a quick overview of the current legislative session. Please stop us if you have any questions. Next slide. So we've entered into an agreement with the city of Socorro, and now you guys have 2 legislative liaisons. Let me explain to you a little bit about what the legislative liaisons. I'm excited that it'll be 2 of you. So we'll work on kind of what your legislative agenda is, the progress that we're making in the Capitol, and then you'll be able to report back to the council periodically without having these very formal presentations. You'll be able to kind of have these conversations about how we move forward on some of your agenda items. I think it's important that we approve as a council your legislative agenda. These are items that you guys as a council want to push forward in this next legislative session. Next slide. So the session began a couple of weeks ago, January 12th. Of course, it was a very different type of opening. There was limited access to the Capitol for members, and COVID testing was required of all visitors, including any type of lobby and all family members. Dade Phelan, who's out of Orange, which is a suburb of Houston or Harris County, was elected speaker. El Paso County delegation members are now Senator Blanco, Representative Moody, Representative Gonzalez, Representative Ortega, Fierro, and Ordaz Perez. And we have those listed in order of seniority. Comptroller Hagar has predicted as of December a $1 billion shortfall, which is about which allows us to have about 112.5 billion will be available for this biennium. Both of those budgets have already been released. The Senate is in charge of the budget this biennium, and Senator Nelson, who's the chair of finance, has already released the budget as of today. So that's available for us to look at. It seems like all of the agencies have been cut with the exception of public education, K through 12. So it's a slight decrease from the previous session. Next slide. Some of the high profile legislative issues, as Ms. Rodarte discussed, will be redistricting. As you all know, there was a very heavy push for the census numbers, which will affect everybody. Not only state representatives and state senators in congressional districts, but it will affect county commissioners, and it will also affect city council districts. So that will be up. The maps will be, actually the maps are being discussed as of now. There will be redistricting districts in the Senate and also in the House. And so it'll be important that you all are up to date as to how those maps are gonna look, particularly for your area. Criminal justice, law enforcement, and policing. As you know, there's been a national movement with regard to policing and law enforcement. Those are issues that will be at the forefront of this particular legislative session. General government issues. As you know, last legislative session, local governments were under attack, particularly by the governor, lieutenant governor, the legislative process, which took a lot of local control out of the municipalities and local governments. And so that'll be another issue that will be discussed, particularly this session with regard to COVID. And then of course, COVID response and recovery. So
I think it's important that you all have great relationships, not only with your delegation that we have here within El Paso County, but that you all expand your relationships outside of this county and have really serious conversations about how it has affected your area and how we recover as we move forward. Next slide. These are the priority issues as we have discussed with your city manager. Waste and wastewater issues, expansion of municipal powers, solid waste, historical preservation, and CARES Act funding. So those would be considered your legislative agenda. Those would be your top issues moving forward. Support and oppose items. Is there a question? Mr. Pettis? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Regarding support and oppose items, these are items that you generally, as a council, as a municipality, you take a stand on. These are not necessarily issues that you file a bill for or that you necessarily want to target when you come into the legislative session. General items are, of course, Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreements, supporting legislation that allows for voter approval of sales tax amount and sales tax decrease. Support legislation that allows cities to publish certain notices via the internet. Those are types of things. I know it might seem that it's common sense, but unfortunately, these are things that must be, they must be vetted and they must be required by state legislation. And then, of course, you have under oppose unfunded mandates on local governments. What that generally means is the state, whenever they file any type of legislation, they can't require that you all pay for it. So if I think something's a great idea and I want the city to implement a certain issue, I should actually attach some money to it. So that's what you guys would be doing. If you all have an idea, state, make sure that there's some money behind it. Next slide. Are there any questions?
Ms. Rodarte?
Yes, Mayor Council, I would like to just provide like examples of things that we would like to oppose, just to give you like a better idea, like oppose legislative that would erode local authority over land uses. That would be something that we would want to oppose legislation that would restrict or hinder a city's ability to annex property located within its ETJ. These are challenges that we are already facing now that we want to take a stand and have a voice out there. Oppose the legislation that would erode or invalidate a city's ability to establish and enforce reasonable business regulations. Support the continuation of existing eminent domain authority and related tools used for planning and development of projects serving a valid public purpose. You know, and the list goes on and on. I just feel that there's a lot of things that we need to actually do support or oppose, depending on what we see our city moving forward.
To date, yes, ma'am.
No, I was just gonna tell Mr. Darte that if she has that list, I would love to have a copy of it.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was-
I'll go ahead and send it to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Pettis?
Thank you. And Ms. Marcus, I'm sorry, I was resting my arm initially on the chair, and so it looked like I was raising my hand. So I apologize for that. But is there anything in our agenda having to do with small business development? Again, since we are looking at or wanting to develop the Socorro corridor for those kinds of businesses, again, for tourism improvement or tourism development, small business development, those kinds of things, if we have anything on the agenda for that.
Not at this moment. At this moment, what we have are those 6 items, or 5 or 6 items that we discussed, which were basic infrastructure.
But we will definitely do research on whatever bills are out there, or if there's something that we can support, oppose, or create. We'll definitely look into that for small businesses.
Because that's
Tourism
I mean,
and
that's the
HOC.
lifeblood of a small community are the mom and pop shops that we can help develop.
And Mr. Perez, that could certainly come under the CARES Act funding. So the way this works generally is that the federal, I also sat on appropriations when I served in the legislature. I sat under the appropriations for 2 terms. And generally with the feds bring the monies down, they ask the states either they can match funds and earmark, or they can just kind of appropriate it the way the feds have allocated it. And we don't really have too many answers with regard to the CARES Act funds, but I can't imagine that they don't have economic development in there somewhere for economic recovery and also for vaccination. So that'll be very important moving forward, is how do we get these small cities and how do we allow Socorro to be able to tap into this money throughout this process and make sure that you guys can apply for those types of funds.
Mr. Duran?
Thank you.
I spoke with Dr. Gonzalez yesterday, and she was telling me that there's not going to be that many bills on this legislative session because of the COVID crisis. And then another plus is that she has been named vice chair of Appropriations Committee. So that is going to be a really good, person to know when appropriations come up, that we can really push to get as many dollars into Socorro as we can. So I think we're in the right place at the right time and with the right people.
Absolutely, Mr. Duran. I think, I think this is an important session for all the names, the reasons that we named earlier, redistricting, and of course the COVID. To date, there's been about 2,000 bills filed. 200 have to do with cities. So we do have to do our due diligence to make sure that cities are not taking on burdens that they cannot bear, that the state is not putting the burden on the cities to put on the taxpayer. That's certainly our opportunity to make sure that, that we're not taking on the undue burden. And I agree with you that Representative Gonzalez is going to be instrumental in appropriations. Committee assignments have not been announced. In fact, tomorrow, the cards are going to be submitted to the House for the Senate has announced committee assignments. The House will deliberate next week. They're meeting with the Speaker. And so those will likely be announced February. So we are in anticipation. We hope that Representative Gonzalez stays on appropriations, and we are looking forward to working with her to make sure that Socorro gets what they need.
Do we have any more questions? Do you want to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you want to approve the agenda with the priorities that we have identified, which was the water and wastewater, expansion of municipal powers, solid waste and historical preservation, and then funding, any potential funding for our city?
If I may, Mayor, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Villalobos. But can we do like a general statement? Yes, to approve those agenda items, legislative agenda items, and any other items that the committee sees fit to advocate for the city.
Ms. Villalobos?
I was gonna try to add that to Mr. Perez. You said it well. Thank you.
So I'll amend my motion to reflect again. Again, I'll state my motion to approve the agenda item with the stated legislative agenda items, and to allow the group to advocate for the city of Socorro for anything that may come up, or unforeseen issues.
And I will go ahead and send my list to both Mr. Duran and Ms. Colombia Lobos.
Was there a second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Ruben Reyes?
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Ralph Duran?
Yes.
Victor Perez?
Aye.
And Ivan Colombia Lobos?
Yes.
We need a motion to delete items 30 through 32.
Motion to delete items 30 to 32.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Meeting adjourns at 9:06 PM.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares. Mr. Nevares?
He already left. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
right
he's
there.
he's figuring out how he's gonna leave.
I'm here. Finally, let's go.
Okay.
Can we have your vote to adjourn?
I said yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourns at 9:06 PM.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Be
night.
careful.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.